welcome back to another episode of Exposing Ourselves. This is episode 9, and this is the show where we expose each other to new things. Matt, a big music fan, will assign me one of his favorite albums or playlists to listen to each week, and I, a movie buff, will give him one of my favorite films, and we come together on this podcast to discuss it all. I'm Travis Ritchie, and with me, as always, is my good friend,
Matt Runquist.
In today's episode, we're going to discuss the movie Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle, and the playlist, which consists of one song called The Dead Flag Blues by Godspeed, You Black Emperor. Hey, Matt, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. You know what? I've been, at the first few episodes, I was trying to call you a different way to describe you as my friend, and I had something today, but I can't remember what it was. So,
you know what, though?
My good friend you are.
Good friend is the best descriptor. Good friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting when I think of you as merely my good friend.
Oh, merely my good friend.
He's
Posh.
only my good friend.
Pish posh.
Oh, I know what I was going to do. I was going to call you my hetero life mate, and then I realized I don't know. Do you know that reference?
Heterosexual life mate?
Yeah, well, specifically hetero life mate. It's from a movie.
Oh, I did not.
Probably seen.
I did not know that. What is it from?
It's from Clerks.
Oh, duh. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny
yeah,
because
I
did used to...
Sideshow Bob.
Did
Silent
used
Bob.
to have a friendship here in
Matt.
Milwaukee, and we referred to each other as heterosexual life mates, but it turned out that
Nice.
Well, I mean, except it's no longer a friendship, so that's awkward.
Oh, that's a shame.
Really should have referred to ourselves
I have already...
Oh. I really
What?
should have referred to ourselves as like heterosexual 4-year mates, I guess.
Yeah, partners. Partners is a non-delineated amount of time.
Yeah.
And I like that. Man, I have already established that my brain is a little bit wonky based on not only the multiple times we've tried to open this episode that won't be audible to viewers, but also this discussion of you being my good friend. But I will say I will not apologize because they said never apologize in advance. But I will say that I am woefully underslept. I am sleep deprived this week. It has been a long week, and I've only had 2 days of the 7 that I've had an adequate amount of sleep. So yeah, there's that.
Well, I've been having a little trouble sleeping myself lately, and I have no obvious cause. I've been waking up in the middle of the night for like hours and then eventually falling back asleep. But so I'm not super sleep deprived right now, but that feels very random. In a half an hour, I could be
Do you try anything
exhausted.
for that? Like, do you take melatonin or something?
I took melatonin once, but I think I'm such a horrible caffeine addict that melatonin can't touch me. It's like I have like
interesting.
I have like a perfect caffeine shield around me at all times.
A caffeine force field
It's
around
like,
your brain.
It's like in a fighting game when they have like the little flashing lights like preventing anyone from touching you for a certain amount of time.
Yes.
That's basically how me and caffeine are.
This caffeine is your invincibility star.
Yeah.
I used to have a very heavy caffeine addiction, nice and healthy, especially after I moved to LA. I went to work for Starbucks and all that free coffee. I was drinking about a pot a day, which is for reference, 4 grande mugs of coffee a day. And
now, is grande small,
sugar.
medium, or large?
That's a medium at
That's
Starbucks.
medium.
It's a
Okay,
16
great.
ounce, so like 4 16-ounce cups of coffee.
Oh my
give or take.
gosh.
And I realized that I was addicted because I would wake up and if I didn't have my coffee by like noon, I would get a headache. And I didn't like the idea that I was addicted to anything. And I don't do any other substances. Like I don't smoke, I don't drink, I don't, do any drugs. And so, and you shouldn't either, kids. And I cut myself back to half a pot a day. And I was pretty comfortable with that, and I would allow myself like a third cup if I really needed it. And then I started cold brewing my coffee a few years ago. And about the same time, I was trying to shift to being more vegetarian, not vegan, but, close. And my digestion was a little wonky, and it's always been that way. I've never really been able to, figure that out. And so my doctor was like, well, maybe you should cut back on your caffeine. I was like, I'm already down to like 2 cups. And so what I did was I cut my beans that I was using to make my cold brew with half decaffeinated beans.
Ugh.
And so No, they're actually not bad.
Yeah?
I do the decaf Sumatra from Starbucks, and it's I really like it.
You
And
know, decaf gets a bad rap from way back in the 80s when decaf really was like noticeably different from like regular coffee. But
they
nowadays,
use a bunch of different new. They use a bunch of different new methods for getting it to be decaf, and it's pretty. It's fine. It's good, and I really liked being able to have a cup of coffee at night if I wanted to have a coffee, and I could just have one without feeling like I was messing up my sleep.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's why I'm not sleeping. And it's not that I'm having trouble sleeping. It's that I have to get up so early for work, and then I'm up late. Like tomorrow night is Monday night, and I have an improv class that goes until 10 p.m.
Oh my!
In Hollywood. And then from there, I have to get home, which usually takes an hour, hour and a half, eat some dinner, maybe, and then go to bed. And then I usually have like a 7 a.m. call time, which means getting up at 6. And so those are the reasons.
Yeah.
And that was all last week. Just a lot of early call times. Saturday, I was working on a show, and my call time was 6:30 a.m. And I didn't know ahead of time where we were filming until the night before, and it turned out that it was going to require like a 50-minute bike ride to get there. So I had to wake up at like 5 a.m. and it was obnoxious.
Wow, that's when I get up, Travis.
Do you really wake up that early regularly?
I wake up between 5 and 6 without an alarm.
Wow, that is not me, man. I've never been. That's the biggest reason I didn't do well in college the first time around, because at 8 o'clock class was.
You know, this might be just an internet meme, but I've always been fond of the one that goes around that talks about how back in the prehistoric times, people were needed to stay up through the night, right? To watch the fire and watch for wild animals and things like that. And so and other people were needed for those early mornings for the same reason, right? And so there really evolved a variety of people to, some people. So the night owl and morning person thing has its basis in sort of evolutionary fact. I have no idea if that's true, but it's an internet meme. I read it on Facebook. Yeah. So as you know,
I really like it. And you know what? That is very appealing. If I'm giving it just a moment of thought, it doesn't seem likely, like evolutionarily speaking, because the amount of time that could be a thing kind of pales in the length of time that humans have been evolving in general. I don't know, man. I don't know. I like it.
Well, now we're going to have to do some research.
Oh, yes.
Which means Googling.
Well,
yes,
just ask. Googling. Let's just ask Hank Green. He'll get to the bottom of it for us.
Yeah.
Do you know Hank Green?
I do know Hank Green, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Well, he'll do
I mean, not personally.
No. Well, I know him personally.
We're not pals. Yeah, I know. I don't know him personally. All right. Well, hey, man, should we get into it?
Sure, let's get into it.
Let's switch it up this week.
Oh,
and do the movie first.
I thought you were going to do the same thing, where let's switch it up and do the music first. Movie. So the movie that I assigned you was Jumanji, this is honestly a kind of a reaction of last week's episode, and I just wanted to, maybe not last week's. What was last week? No, last week was Lion. 2 weeks ago. I still want to be like, I just need to take it easy on myself. So
I got to admit, I found it very interesting. You had not mentioned to me, but you mentioned in your Facebook status that Spider-Verse is your favorite movie now? Is that
No. That was an embellishment for Facebook. It's not my favorite movie, but I do. Okay. It is one of my favorites. It's probably in my top 10 easy. And so anyway, but
top 10 movie.
Let's not bring up old. Let's not
your top 10
open up old wounds. So I assigned you Jumanji: Return to the Jungle, which was an interesting experience for me. I rewatched it this week as well, but I want to talk to you about my initial experience with this movie, which was I liked the original Jumanji with Robin Williams, and I I loved the book as a kid. It was one of my favorite books. So I have a lot of like feels about Jumanji in general. And when this movie came out in 2017, I think it was it seemed like a cash grab. It's like it was in the age of reboots. Let's reboot everything. And this movie seemed like, oh my God, let's just put out a Jumanji movie because people know what it is and we'll make some money on it. And they did make some money on it. It made worldwide almost $1 billion in the box office.
Wow.
And it's got Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson in it. It's got Kevin Hart, who I am not typically a fan of. It's got Jack Black, who is... in my brain, I don't like Jack Black, but I end up liking everything I see him in. So that's a weird thing. And then Karen Gillan, who
I know
was
just
from...
what you mean.
Yeah, exactly. And then Karen Gillan from Doctor Who, and also now she's in Guardians of the Galaxy as Nebula. And so she's in it. And the trailers were dumb. I wasn't expecting much. I don't know when I finally got myself to watch this movie, but when I did, I was shocked at how much I enjoyed it. Now, that's not to say it's great. In rewatching it, I've definitely discovered a lot of things that I was like, okay, I don't know if that makes any sense, but there are still things I love about it. Anyway, so the only other thing I will add that's interesting about this movie... No, this is just backstory. It is, the story was written and the script was co-written by Chris McKenna, who wrote for and was one of the producers on Community. Which is, and one of the reasons why Community was so much fun and so nerdy and interesting. He wrote, among other things, one of the episodes I was in, which was Chaos Theory, which is the creation of all the different universes using the dice when they're trying to figure out who goes to get the pizza. Anyway, that was a Chris McKenna episode that was Nebula Award nominated, if not winning, and he wrote this movie, among others. Matt, it's all you. Tell me what you thought of Jumanji. Into
I quite liked it. It was I mean this is a really good recommendation for sure. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's not great by any stretch of the imagination, but it's way better than it has to be.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, right?
Yeah, this is definitely a movie that benefits from low expectations.
Sure. Yep.
Right. The lower your expectations are going into this, the happier you're going to be. But by and large, the jokes land. The plot makes sense, I feel like, in terms of the thing. It makes sense to me that Jumanji becomes a video game system because that is staying with the times, and that's, Jumanji has this sort of... So I've never read the book, but Jumanji has like a consciousness about it, right? I'm not sure exactly how that's dealt with, but the fact that it would become a video game makes perfect sense. The characters are interesting. I think the adult actors did a, by and large, great job of not just playing themselves, but playing the youthful figures inside of themselves.
Yeah, that was the most enjoyable thing for me.
Yeah. The only one that I'll really read on that front is Kevin Hart. And I will say that Kevin Hart had the hardest job because his high school character was very, very sketched out stereotypes. I mean, they're all sketched out stereotypes to a certain extent, but that one is like the fridge character is like dumb jock, except the casting for that didn't really read as dumb jock to me. And
I don't think dumb jock is the thing.
I really understood that character at all, and he didn't seem particularly unique in any way. So when Kevin Hart basically kind of tosses most of that in the trash bin, it's like, okay, yeah, I mean, I don't believe that there's a 6'4", large man inside of Kevin Hart right now.
Yeah.
But by and large, everybody else did a great job. The Rock was fantastic. Jack Black was unreal good.
Yeah.
Like in a movie with, really good casting throughout, Jack Black stands out as the standout. Wow.
Yeah.
This is professional amateur podcasting right here, folks. Unreal performance from Jack Black as I want to say Brittany. is the character's name?
No.
It's something along those lines.
Yeah, it's something along those lines.
Bethany or Brittany.
Bethany, that's it.
Yeah, just wow. Really, really good. Yeah, and I enjoyed it. It's really fun. It hangs together. It was good stuff.
I really was shocked at also the deftness to which, someone like Dwayne Johnson, who has a sense of humor, and he is, but he pretty much has a character that he does, and he was playing almost a parody of that character in this movie, but for him to access that insecure, nerdy, like dweeb part of himself somehow, and bring that as the kind of the core of this person that he's acting as, and I thought everyone did that very well. Like and for Jack Black, like you mentioned, to be for his core to be this very hot blonde girl, high school girl, Instagram influencer, whatever, and for that to be his core with a Jack Black skin. And all of them did it. Karen Gillan did it with Martha, who is the insecure, like nebbish girl who now wears this gorgeous like model action figure female body, and then even Kevin Hart. Like, it's the most I've ever liked Kevin Hart in a thing. And
wow.
Well, yeah, because he did manage to do something interesting, and some of the jokes really land. Like the fact that cake is his weakness is hysterical.
Yeah, some of the jokes, I do think Kevin Hart is funny. I have liked him in other things. I just felt like if the brief was you have to embody the teenager inside of you, I felt like he did the worst of the four of them.
Yeah.
He didn't do nothing, right? He didn't like forget about it, but everybody else was better.
And I would say, I would blame that on his character. Yeah, I would blame that on his real character, like his high school character being underdeveloped more than
that's what I was saying. Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, I mean, I actually felt Bobby Cannavale as the villain was fairly blah. Like, there was nothing there.
Yeah, I did not love the villain at all, and I felt like it was weirdly horror, like it had been trucked in from another movie. He's got like disgusting bugs crawling across his face and into his orifices. That's never really explained.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just kind of evil.
But he is just the video game villain, and video game villains do tend to be two-dimensional,
right.
No pun intended.
Yeah.
But I just thought that was fairly interesting.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm going into my reads now of things that I didn't love.
Okay.
Everybody's got 3 lives, right?
Right.
And that's from a story length perspective, that makes sense. But from a video game perspective, it's extraordinarily restrictive. And then late in the movie, we meet, well, not late, halfway through the movie, we meet the kid who's been trapped in the game.
Right.
Right. And
played here by Nick Jonas in his in-game avatar.
Yes. Yeah. So that was interesting because the in-game avatar is young, right? That threw me for a minute, right? Because everybody else is an adult, and then he's young, and it's like, why? Well, is he
he's
young
however Nick Jonas is. I mean, Nick Jonas, he might be 30 for all I know. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe he just seems young because we're old.
Yeah, it's possible. But I guess my point was it jarred me at first, and then I realized, the video game character is youthful, and that's why he's youthful.
Right. Well, and so is Karen Gillan's character too. She's young. They're probably about the same age.
Yeah. But anyways, back to the 3 lives thing. So when they meet him, he's got like all this experience. He's like, oh, that's a horrible way to die, and blah, blah, blah. And he's like very, like he knows all the tricks and the trades, right? But he's only lost 2 lives, right?
Yeah.
According to the movie. And that doesn't make sense, right? Because think about it, right? Like, you're transported to this world. You don't know what the rules are. You're going to die once, like, as a fluke, right? So really, he's only had 1 death where he was, like, trying, and then he failed.
Yeah.
Right? So it felt like, it just felt like the 3 lives thing was restrictive for the sake of the movie rather than something that would make sense for the story. And I, so I didn't love that, right?
That's
because
fair.
it's a nitpick, but it did make me go, yeah, I mean, look, they're down to one life already. And yeah, you're going to get pretty freaking conservative when you are down to one life.
Yeah.
So the let's see, what else did I have for reads? Kevin Hart, I didn't love, but he was fine. Okay, so Karen Gillan, we need to talk about this character.
Oh, okay.
Just a little. So you're familiar with the concept of fan service?
Sure.
Okay.
What?
So this is a fan servicey character. She's wearing an extremely skimpy outfit, and the character that she is playing is deeply uncomfortable with that outfit.
Right.
To the point where she asks Jack Black for a cover-up and then ties it around her hips. Like, why are you not wearing the cover-up as a cover-up? Oh, because we have to... Yeah, no, think about it. From the perspective of a teenage girl that doesn't like displaying her body and is deeply uncomfortable, why did she not just put the shirt on over herself?
Okay, I mean... Maybe because the part of herself that she doesn't like the most is her legs. And if you have to choose between your legs and your midriff...
Yeah, I think she did that because Karen Gillan is insanely hot,
Well.
And we like to look at her. And again, like I love to look at Karen Gillan. Like, who doesn't, right? But
I mean, so first of all, I'm gonna say that from the plot of the movie, her character is the Lara Croft character, and Lara Croft famously wore very much that kind of outfit, and so they're poking fun at that.
Although Tomb Raider, Lara Croft's belly is covered
in the movie or the game?
in the video game.
Oh, is it? I would be willing to bet that not every iteration is like that. I mean, there have been a lot of versions.
I'm referring to the original. I'm referring to the original.
Well, the original was like 8-bit, so it's hard to see much of anything.
It was polygons.
It was.
Thank you
I know.
Much.
I'm exaggerating for comedic
polygons.
effect. But yeah. So I mean, gosh, I feel like your old man is showing a little bit by picking at the character's costume like that.
Look, I mean, like I said, she's very nice to look at, and I think so. The joke is that they all choose what they think is going to be a good fit for them, and they all end up in like sort of grossly opposite of what they were expecting, except maybe the Rock character, right? Who's just grossly opposite of what his, real life character is, mm-hmm, right? Mm-hmm. But, the Bethany chooses curvy genius, right?
Yes.
And it turns out that it's Jack Black, right? Like, I get that. And as like a one-hitter joke, right? Where it's like, oh, Karen Gillan shows up and she's dressed slutty, right? That's funny. Right?
That's mean. I think sexy is not slutty. Inappropriate for the jungle is the joke. And, but,
Okay. So inappropriate for the jungle.
As someone who is very sex positive, I don't want to, and also like living in West Hollywood where, it's fine for men to wear skimpy shorts and tank tops. So I don't want to shame anybody for doing that. Not even in a movie.
I'm not shaming anybody for doing that either. I'm saying that her character is explicitly upset about being dressed like that.
Right.
But doesn't do anything to change it.
I think the point is that she learned,
and the reason is that she's nice to look at.
Sure,
that's it.
Okay, but that also the reason is that in the video game that's what her character looks like, and yeah, you can be upset about it, but you can't be upset all the time at something, and that's kind of a life lesson where it doesn't do anybody any good to be upset at your circumstance, right? Your circumstance is what it is, and you can change it, adapt to it, or quit, or just not live life.
Right. And I guess what I'm saying is that the adaptation that she does to it does not ring true for me.
I think she learns to appreciate her actual beauty in her real life. And her character, her teenage character, is not ugly in any way. She's a little frumpy, but that's because she kind of has poor self-esteem. But learning, being in this beautiful body helps her, I don't know, become a stronger person in her real body. I found it nice.
Yeah, I don't have any more points. Like no more notes. Like that's how I felt about it. Like there were really just a couple of relatively minor things.
Yeah, some of the things that surprised me as I didn't remember how effective the emotional kind of ending was, especially when they go to Alex's house. Alex, the boy who's been trapped in there for 20 years. They go to his house and he rolls up to the door with a family. And it's actually played by a young Colin Hanks. Not young, but it's played by Colin Hanks, who looks so much like his dad. It's crazy. But and he kind of recognizes them and pokes and picks them out, and it's like, oh, you must be must be Fridge, and you must be Bethany. And I don't know, something about that moment was really emotionally resonant for me. And
yeah, that was really well handled.
I was kind of shocked at that. And then I liked how Spencer and Martha ended up getting together, and that felt earned.
Actually, you know what? Did that feel earned? Because I felt like that was just like, well, we're the two dorks. So it was funny because in game he's like, oh, I've liked you, and she's like, I've liked you, and I was like, I did not get that at all from the going into
That's
the game.
That's because you have always been cool, Matthew. As a dork, let me assure you that it is really tough to let the people know that who you're into, that you're into them. And I really identified with both of those characters and their truths.
Okay, and I thought of another thing.
Yes.
I felt like the visual effects, so I'm not going to say they were bad, right? They were uneven, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
Sometimes it felt like they were really going for like a cartoony, big, almost mask-like special effect, and sometimes it felt like they were really trying and just missing the mark.
Mm-hmm.
And it was almost like they were like, okay, here's our list of 60 VFX shots. We're going to send 6 scenes off to each of 10 different VFX shops.
Yeah.
And they're just going to do their thing, and then we're going to get it back. Like, it just felt like it didn't feel like there was continuity.
Well, but
in
Matthew,
the
that's
special
pretty
effects.
much how it works, Matt.
I know.
And it's probably more like, it's probably more like 1,000 VFX shots in a movie like this.
I know. I wasn't.
Well, but you're saying it right, and I think what happened is you probably get some inconsistency there. So your eye is spot on, I think, and you're seeing that quite right. I did wrestle for a long time about the ending and about the fact that that Alex didn't go back with him, and I always thought that it was a inconsistency with the way the game worked, because in my mind I'm like, well, when Robin Williams came out of Jumanji, he was old, out of his time, and he came out. And so why wouldn't Alex be old and out of his time when he came out? And what I realized was that that at the end of the original movie Jumanji, Robin Williams gets back to his childhood, doesn't he?
Oh, okay. I got to admit,
I'm pretty sure, and so I think I remembered it wrong, and thus my problem with the continuity was incorrect, and so this does stand up to scrutiny as far as that's concerned. Speaking of which, I like that they wrap in the original movie, and so Nick Jonas's character is actually living in Parrish. I can't remember what his name is. His tree house that he built in Jumanji, which I thought was kind of neat. So
nice. They
tie in the original movie, and so it actually is kind of part of the world. So, Matt, do you want to give it a rating?
I absolutely would like to give it a rating. I did spend a little time thinking about what I wanted to do, because my stated rules for ratings are 1 through 10. I'm using the whole scale.
Okay.
And no half ratings.
Yeah, of course.
10 is enough.
Yeah,
10 is enough numbers.
Sure.
Okay. But I really wanted to give this a 7.5, right? And I spend a lot of time going, well, I'm not going to give it a 7.5.
Nope.
It has to be a 7 or an 8.
Yep.
What does it deserve more? Because I do feel like this is a 7.5 movie, but I feel like this movie is a 7.
Okay.
Just with the few problems that I had with it, and sort of like the low. I feel like if I was going into this movie expecting to be like wowed, I would have been disappointed, right? It was because I went into it going, yeah, I mean, it's a rock movie, Jumanji, like it's, I'm expecting to laugh a few times, and I'm expecting not to have to throw popcorn at the screen, right?
Yeah.
And so with those expectations, it exceeded those expectations, but it still got the benefit. So I'm going to give it a 7.
All right, that's fair. I think that for me, I rated it on IMDb as an 8, but I might actually, on my second viewing that I did this week, reduce that to a 7, just because it surprised me that it was so good. It was much better than I expected it to be. But now on my second viewing, I'm finding flaws, and so an 8 for me is a movie that I will definitely watch again with gusto. That's 8s, 9s, 10s. 7s are really good movies. I may see it again. But I might not be in a hurry to watch it again. And I think this falls really solidly into that category. And happy to recommend it to people. Think it's worth watching, but maybe not. Maybe not like super solid. One thing I do have a problem with was the fact that since Jumanji became a video game, and they made a big point of the fact that all 5 characters relied, in order to win, they all had to work together. But, like, how is any one person... Like, how was Alex ever expected to win the game by himself, So that bothers me a little bit. Like, the game basically tortured this kid because he went in alone, which, if he was a loner, is, like, extra torturous. So, yeah.
Well, and what kind of game system has 5 controllers?
Yeah, that was the other thing. Like, even in the 90s, having 4 controllers was pretty extreme. So, yeah, that was another issue for sure. Yeah. A 7 from me. But great. Well,
nice.
Let's move on.
I think. Wait. We have to just put a pin in this moment. I think that's the first time we've both given anything the same rating.
Yeah. Maybe. I think that's probably true. And it won't be the last. So.
Here's hoping.
Statistically speaking, if we do this long enough, it won't be the last.
Okay.
The next thing we're going to talk about is the song or the music or the audio.
I'm gonna give this to you. I'm gonna introduce.
You
this.
do it,
ladies and gentlemen. I gave Travis one song this week, one song to listen to, but I told him he had to give it his full attention. It is a 16-minute long song called "The Dead Flag Blues" by 1990s post-rock Canadian band Godspeed, You Black Emperor. All right, Travis.
That's
what
it.
Do you got?
That's the only introduction you're going to give it?
Well, it doesn't need any more introduction.
Okay, so first of all, it's one track. I do want to push back at the idea that it's one song, because the track has at least 2 or 3 breaks in it where the type of music, the pace, everything changes. It's essentially 4 songs in one track. That's what I'm going to say here.
Okay.
So I listened to this at your recommendation. The first time I listened to it was on my hike. I went to the top of the Wisdom Tree here in LA, which is a mountain hike. It's up by the Hollywood sign. You can hike up. It's good 800,000 feet high, and from that vantage point you can see the entire LA basin out to the ocean, downtown, and then from the other direction you can see the San Fernando Valley. It's really beautiful. And I went up there.
Yeah, we get the point. You put the work in. I
did, and I went up there and I sat down and I put my earbuds in and I sat and listened to this 16-minute thing and really tried to absorb it. I also listened to it once more whilst on my bike, because I wanted to give it as due, like I do most of the things that we listen to. And I listened to it on my bike, thinking that just another kind of situation might be interesting to, process the music differently. And then I listened to it again when I got home while I was kind of making dinner and puttering around.
Okay.
The first time I listened to it, I was first of all struck by how calming it is. It's a meditation song, and it's something like it's almost like those, like if you have the Calm app on your phone or on your whatever. It's almost like a meditation music that you're listening to, and the guy's voice, and I think is he Native American?
I actually don't know anything at all about the spoken word at the beginning of it. He's not a member of the band.
Oh, okay.
It's like found audio.
Oh, interesting. Well, it sounds like a Native American voice. The accent is what triggered me on that. And not triggered, but like tuned me in. I don't know how to say that. But
you can just say triggered. It's fine.
And so this really kind of low rumbling like voice doing this spoken word poem, and the music is calm and it's pretty chill, right? And so I found myself zoning out. I'm on the top of a mountain. I'm zoning out, and the problem is I had to turn up the volume all the way in order to hear some of the stuff early on in the song. And then about halfway through, it goes silent, and then the next track starts with a train horn that is entirely too loud for my ears. And then it has some like screeching sounds that were kind of painful to listen to. So my advice, if you're going to listen to this song, is don't have your volume all the way up. All right, turn it down to like 80%. You might miss some stuff, but you won't be hurt by the stuff that is too loud. And I zoned out very completely while I was up on that mountain listening to it. Listening to it again as I had my other things to do, which was not your suggestion, but I just wanted to try it in a different context. I think I enjoyed it more as kind of background for my own activities.
Sure.
It's not something I'll ever listen to again. I just honestly I can't think of a circumstance where I would. And I'm kind of curious what yours are. Why this song?
Why do I love this? Well, I love this for a lot of reasons. I was exposed to it in my early 20s. I think I might have been 20 actually. And I was definitely trying to sort of explore music that was like less popular. Incidentally, this debut album, I don't know if you know what Pitchfork is, but it's a pretty influential online review site. And especially in the late 90s and early 2000s, a Pitchfork review could definitely sell a ton of an album and make something popular almost all by itself. And the album that this is off of, F sharp, A sharp, Infinity, is one of the few albums to get a 10.0 rating from Pitchfork.
Interesting.
And so, it was a different kind of music. It's still guitar based, sort of, or at least the guitars figure prominently in a lot of it. It's almost sound collage in a lot of ways. And I find it really interesting. They do a lot of like slow orchestral builds. There's a lot of like cello and a violin, sort of building up intensity and then releasing it. The rest of the album is also fantastic, but I figured you might murder me if I gave you 45 minutes of this to listen to instead of only 15.
Fair.
I love that it's funny because you're right that I absolutely do not listen to this very often, right? But when you're in the right mood for it, the reason I asked you if you could drive out to the desert to listen to it is because there was a time when I was making the drive from Phoenix to Tucson, so I-10, middle of the night, super dark.
Wow.
Listening to this album and just, feeling it. It's very powerful. You know,
Yeah.
it's powerful.
I can
stuff.
see it being one of two things. I can see it either being a very powerful mental kind of like almost a massage on your brain, but like a nice gentle massage. But or and that can do one of two things. That can like invigorate you, or it can put you right to sleep.
Yeah.
And
no, this is I it's almost like it's good music for achieving an altered state without using like drugs or alcohol, right? Just sort of like you talked about meditative, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is meditative, and
absolutely.
One of the things that we meditate for is to calm ourselves, but another thing is just to change the way we think, right? And to sort of achieve a different mental state, and that I think is something that this music is pretty good at.
I will agree with that, and I think that if you, our viewer, want to experience something like that, where you are listening to something and really kind of changing the way your brain waves are going, I think this would be a good recommendation. Sure, I definitely felt that happen when I was sitting on the top of the mountain listening to it, looking out over the LA basin. Yeah. However, if I were rating it, well, I mean, no, not to be mean or anything. I think that objectively, this is probably not something I would listen to. I wouldn't seek this out. Just because, again, I listen to podcasts when I'm puttering around, when I'm biking, when I'm driving, whatever. So I'm not the type of person to listen to music. So for me, it's not for me. And on that scale, I'd probably give it like a 3 or something. But on the scale of just on its own, like if I can be objective about its musical value, I think I would probably give just this track a 7. And I think it's not higher because of the fact that you can't listen to it at one volume. If you want to appreciate the first part, you have to have your volume up. But if you keep your volume up, you're going to get your ears screeched at, which is not pleasant. And so I think that is something that I didn't like. So that brings it down to a 7. So like if I'm going to give one score, I'll put it smack in the middle at a 5 to mix my two scores together.
Okay. So it's funny. I would agree with Pitchfork that this album is a 10. But this song alone, without the rest of the album, I would give an 8 to. I really like this song, but I do think it sits well as part of the longer work. And it's funny because I get to the end of this like 16 minutes and I'm like, where's the rest?
Yeah.
There's supposed to be more.
It's interesting because I will say when I was listening to it up on the hill, I think it did autoplay into a different song by the same people. And it was a much louder song that was actually kind of unpleasant to listen to. But it was different.
They do have those.
Yeah. So, interesting. So you rate this an 8, you said?
This song I would give an 8.
Okay, yep. Great. Well, that's a 7, a 5 and an 8. It's not bad for a good song, and 7's on Jumanji. Oh wow, whew, interesting week. Next week, however, is going to be even more interesting. Next week is a
very special week.
Next week is our 10th episode.
10th anniversary, basically.
And so we want to do a very special episode of Exposing Ourselves. And so what we're going to do is something a little bit different. Instead of recommending a movie or an album that we love to the other, we are going to recommend a movie or an album that we haven't listened to. So we will both be listening to something and watching something that neither of us have seen or heard yet.
I'm super excited about this. I'm so excited to find out what movie you are assigning that you haven't seen.
I honestly haven't. I've only given a little bit of thought to it, and I keep on settling on this movie that I haven't seen. It was critically acclaimed, and I haven't seen it yet, and I kind of want to see it, but also wouldn't watch it on my own, like without a reason,
Okay.
without an assignment, without telling me, so without, so like I'm almost giving myself this assignment as well as you. Have you seen the movie The Revenant with Leonardo DiCaprio and Tom Hardy?
Is this the bear movie?
This is the bear movie. Yeah, this is the bear movie.
Okay. I'm a little scared. I thought this was a horror movie. Is this a horror movie?
No, it's a drama. Leonardo
Oh,
DiCaprio
it's a
wouldn't be in a
drama.
horror movie, I don't think. And no, famously he is mauled by a bear somewhere in this movie.
Okay.
And I think it might be a CGI bear. It might be a real bear. I'm not sure. I honestly
I hope he's not.
don't
I
know.
hope they
Don't
didn't
remember much
maul
about
Leo
this.
with a real bear. So
I do remember that I think he was nominated for an Oscar for it. I don't know if this is the movie he won the Oscar for. We'll talk about that next week.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
I feel
The Revenant.
I'm a little concerned. I do occasionally have dreams about being attacked by large carnivores. So
Really?
yeah.
That's fascinating.
Ti-
We're definitely going to talk about that.
It's usually lions and tigers, but anyways, okay. Well, let's
Not
go.
bears? Oh my.
Not bears. Let's move on to the album. So
Okay.
there is. So are you a fan of Death Cab for Cutie?
No, but
Have you
I've
ever-
heard of them.
You've heard of them? Okay.
I've heard
They-
of them, yeah.
There's a 2003 album by Death Cab. It's considered their best album. It's called Transatlanticism, and I have
Okay.
never heard it. I've heard a couple.
Oh,
I've heard
gosh.
one or two of the songs off of it, but I've never heard the album. So those of you who know what a ridiculous indie rock head I am are probably scoffing right now, but I never became a Death Cab fan. I was a huge Modest Mouse fan, huge Built to Spill fan, huge Decemberists fan, but for some reason Death Cab was like, oh no, I'm too cool for Death Cab or whatever. And so I never got into them, but now I feel like there's this big hole in my knowledge, so... there's a song on there called The Sound of Settling or something like that I have heard, but I have not heard the whole album. So I'm really excited to finally fill this hole in my knowledge. And,
Oh my.
I think you'll
Me
like
too.
this.
I'm excited to listen to things that you haven't listened. I'm first both to discover this together.
Yeah, this will be fun.
And, yeah, I had given thought. We had discussed the idea of me recommending music to you and you recommending a movie to me.
Yeah.
But I think we may do that like in the future. But
Yeah.
that seems like a much
Episode
harder
100 or
proposition.
something. Yeah.
I don't know what album I could possibly recommend to you that you are not aware of. Or
The
have not heard.
2003 album Transatlanticism by Death Cab for Cutie.
Well, but I've never listened to it, so I can't recommend it because it's not something I love. The only thing I could think of was like there used to be a. Do you remember a band called 2NU? They did a song called Ponderous.
No.
This would have been back when we were in middle school or high school or something
Okay.
like that.
Nah, no.
And that sprang to mind, but
That's pretty obscure.
it's weird. It's weird. But anyway. All right, Matt. Well, thank you for exposing yourself to me.
Thanks, Travis. Thank you for exposing yourself to me.
All right. Well, we'll see you in episode 10 next week. Thank you and have a wonderful evening.
Yep. Good night,
Or
everybody.
day. Have a whole good time.
No, only good night.